All right, hello Decode. I'm Matt Landers, Head of Developer Relations at WP Engine. And in this session, we're going to be talking about getting started with headless. When you go headless, everything changes. And we want to make that experience of developing a headless site really great, like you're used to with WordPress. So hopefully in this talk, I can show you how we're doing that, where we're headed to make that possibility. And then we'll deploy our site that we build onto the Atlas platform. It's pretty cool. If you want to follow me, you can follow me at Matt_Landers at Twitter. If you want to follow my team, which we do all kind of headless WordPress content, you can go to developers.wpengine.com. And that's where we publish all of our content like blog posts and videos. And that's where all of the Atlas documentation is as well. And you can also follow our team on Twitter at WPE Decode. It's a lot of following, I know, but it's worth it. A lot of good content on the way. All right, real quick before we get into the demo. This is the Headless Framework. These are the kind of things that we're tackling right now today, and we have a roadmap of a lot of things that we want to do in the future. It's broken into two parts. We have a plugin that's responsible for making WordPress a really great headless CMS. Then we have our NPM package that's there to help you build really great front-end experiences with JavaScript. That package is broken down to where some of it can be used with Angular, Vue, and other frameworks, but it's mostly for React and Next. We really like working in those frameworks, and we're building some specialized things to make it easy to work in there, like hooks with React just to pull back the right content without you having to do anything from WordPress based on the URL. Like, we're going to see all this in the demo, so I don't want to dive in too much on that. But the WordPress plugin is there to do things like rewrite your preview link. So when you click a link in WordPress, you want it to go to the front end, not to the WordPress front end. We want to stop that front end from showing anything for SEO reasons, so the WordPress will do that. And it disables some things in the admin panel so that content producers and marketers don't get confused about what they can and can't do. All right, with that, I don't have a lot of slides. I leave the slides up to Cohen. I like to code. Let's dive in. Let's build a site and deploy it to Atlas. All right, Decode, it's demo time. So let's jump right in because there's a lot that I want to show you to do with our framework and deploying to Atlas and everything. So let's just dive in and get going. I will say that if you don't have experience with React or Node or Next, you don't really have to have Next experience, but if you don't have experience with React and Node, probably going to be a little confusing, but hopefully you can see how cool some of the features are as we go through them. All right, so I'm on our Headless Framework site on GitHub. It's just wp-engine/headless-framework. And I'm going to go through the getting started. I've already created a local site, WordPress site, and I've got the plugins installed just to save some time. And I've pulled down the starter as well, but that's where we're starting. It's from scratch. Nothing's happened yet. Added a few users to WordPress. Well, let's jump into WordPress and take a look real quick. So we only have two plugins installed. We have the WP Engine Headless plugin, which comes from that framework that I just showed you, and then WP GraphQL. So if we go to the settings, Headless, you'll see that on the right-hand side, you can actually install WP GraphQL straight from this plugin. So you really only need to install the WP Engine Headless plugin, and then you can install the other from here. All right, so let's break this down just a little bit. What are we doing? So we're allowed to set our settings for a headless site. For one, we can set our front end URL. So where are we going to host our front end? For right now in development mode, we're going to have it at localhost 3000. So I'm going to save that in here. All right, we have our secret key. This is used for authorization. So like when we do previews or we want to do anything where the user needs to be authenticated, we need this secret key to get our access tokens. We have a menu locations, like where do we want our menus to show up. We're not going to go over that too much. We have our other checkboxes here that do different things within WordPress. For one, we can disable the WordPress theme admin pages so that a marketer or somebody who's not confused when they come in and they try to change things in the theme. We can enable post and category URL rewrites. So that just allows us to rewrite our URLs to know about our front end, and same with the enable public route redirect. So if we hit our front end, like just the home page of the WordPress site, it's going to redirect to localhost 3000. All right. Now I've got this, I've saved these changes. Now let's go look in the Node side. So I'm going to go over to my terminal. I've already pulled down the code. It's in a Next app called Decode. And the first thing I need to do is set my environment variable so it knows about my WordPress site. So I'm going to copy the .env.local sample file that we have. I'm going to add my, I'm going to copy it to .env.local, and I'm going to add my variables to it. So I'm going to open VS Code. I'm going to open that file, and we have some demo properties in here right now. This will actually work and get it running with a demo site that we have on WP Engine, but I'm going to use my local one that I use with to spin up my site. So it's just decode.local. And then I need to paste in my secret. So let me go back to my plugin, copy the secret, and paste this in. So we're going to need to set these environment variables on the Atlas platform too whenever we go to publish and deploy our site. All right, so I'm going to save that. And that's all I need to do to get this running. So let's just do npm run dev. And localhost 3000. So there we go. When I go here, we should see our site spin up. All right, awesome. So I have my site. It looks pretty good. We've got some styling and stuff in there for you already. If you scroll to the bottom, you'll see that we have our latest posts. If I click on one, I can see just hello world. The first thing we're going to notice if I click on about here, I have an about page. This is a page, not a post. So I added this page into my WordPress site. So if we come over to pages, you'll see that I added an about page. If I were to add another page, let's say, test page, and I publish that. If I go to my front end and I just go to /test page, it should work. All right, so that's working. So everything is hooked up, and we'll dive into exactly how this is working and what's framework, what's not in just a minute. So we can add pages in WordPress, we can add posts. So let's just do a post real quick. So let's just add a new post and say previews in headless. And we won't publish this. We'll just go to preview, click the button. It's going to automatically take me to localhost, as you can see up here, and I can see this preview. If I go back to my home page and I scroll down to my post, you'll see that we don't see that post yet. But if I come back over here and say, all right, I'm ready to publish this, let me publish it. All right, and I go here and refresh. We'll see our page is there, or our post is there. Awesome. If I go to the list of posts here, I'll see it as well. You'll notice right now when I'm clicking around, it's not completely instant, and that's because we're in development mode. So let's see what this looks like whenever we run in production mode. So whenever we deploy this to Atlas, this is how it'll run. So I'm going to run npm run build. And what this is going to do is going to build my site, and it's going to be statically generated because of how we have the site coded. Now, you don't have to have everything be static. Some things can be dynamic, but the way that we have it right now, you can tell what's static and what's not. You can see that the majority of our pages picked up by this catch-all route are, and this is posts as well, are statically generated. So now if we run npm start instead of npm run dev, we get the site on a different URL on localhost 8080. And this is going to be statically generated. So now when I click around, look how fast that is. It's insane. So I click around different pages, posts, it's just instantaneous because it's all statically generated. All right, I just wanted to show that so that if you thought, oh, that doesn't look that fast, it's because we're in development mode and Next is watching everything for us. So let's go back to running in dev. Let's make some customizations and look at the code. All right, so let's dive into a little bit. I'm not going to dive in completely to previews because that video on how previews work is on our YouTube channel, our Decode YouTube channel. And you can get to it on our developer relations site too on developers.wpengine.com. That's the site that my team and I run. All right, so previews, you saw them working. Just know that there's an API route that does all the authentication magic. And you could also use that to let users log in, to do commenting, do all kind of stuff where people need to be authenticated. But let's look into some stuff that maybe you haven't seen in previous videos. Let's see what's going on. So in Next, all the routing happens in our pages directory. In there, we have this preview URL, which is how the previews happen, but we have a catch-all route as well. So we're using this catch-all route to just say, hey, any URL that's hit, I want it to come here first so that it can do any template type processing for us. So in here, it's very simple. We're just pulling in this next template loader from the framework. We're pulling in get net static props and net static paths, and we're using those in the next functions for get static props and paths. So we have our own version of those that does some hooking up of the framework, makes certain GraphQL calls for us that we need to happen, and it also allows us to hook up our templates. And our templates work just like templates do in themes in WordPress, where there's this fallback hierarchy, where we query WordPress with the URL, and then there's a hierarchy of pages that might be able to be loaded. Then we choose what template to load based on that. So in our WP templates directory in the starter, which these could live anywhere, we're just importing them here. We have our index page, so this is the default fallback. We have our page, so this is for post or for pages. We have our single for like a single post. We have our front page for our home page, which is how we're getting all that stuff on our home page. We have a category page, a 404, and we're giving those to the template loader, and then based on the URL, it's loading the right version of these templates. And it's all happening statically as well, which that's really cool. So you can see also into these templates that you can add your own get static props and get server-side props in them as well, so that if they need to do something special, they can do it there if it's separate from the default one that you created. All right, so that's cool. That's how all this fallback is working. So if we go back to our site and just see another example of this working, if we go to, for instance, category/categorize, which is where we're at right now, when we click on post, then we see all of our posts. So that's the category URL at work there. And then when we click about, this is hitting that page.tsx in our templates. If we go to the home page, this is hit front page. And then one of these posts, it loads our single template. So that allows us to go customize all these different pages straight from within React. But what if we want to create just a totally different page that's outside of WordPress, outside of anything? We just go to our normal routing like we would in Next, create a new file. I'm going to call it authors, and I'm going to create an authors page. All right. So let's just call this authors page. And we're going to export that. All right. Let's just show this is working. I'll show you how it's working. Wow. Okay. H1 authors page. All right. So now if we go back over to our site and we go to /authors, we'll see that we get this authors page. There's no styling because we just basically didn't do anything. We do have our style sheet loaded that's global, but that's the only thing that we have right now. So let's make this interesting. Let's pull back all the authors from GraphQL, from WordPress using GraphQL. All right, I'm going to go back over to my WordPress. I'm going to click the graphical editor up here. This allows me to visually create a GraphQL query. And we're going to create one that will allow us to grab all of the authors. So I'm going to go down to users. I'm going to go to nodes, and then avatar, I want the URL. I want to grab the first name, the last name, and I also want to get the roles because I want to make sure that they're an author. So I'm going to go to nodes and get that display name for the roles. All right, run this, make sure everything's cool. So I have a few users in here. I have Will and Matt from our DevRel team. I'm going to copy this. And I'm just going to create a constant at the top of this file with this query. So we'll call it authors query. I'm going to make it a GQL query. And that comes from Apollo. So I just need to import this from Apollo. From the Apollo client. So we got that in here now. Great. Now what we want to do is also use query. We want to use query from Apollo to make this query. And this is pretty neat. If you've ever used Apollo, this will be pretty surprising that this is working. So I'm going to say data equals use query. And I'm going to pass in just the author's query. And we should be good. So now we have our data from the query in a variable. Now I just want to pull out the authors out of here. So when I get it, it's going to be users, then nodes. So I want to pull nodes out as the authors. So I'm going to say const authors equals data.users. Let me make sure this is valid. Data.users.nodes. And that's basically our authors list there. All right, and then we want to, let's wrap this. We don't need that anymore. Let's wrap it and do it in an OL. And then we'll loop through those authors or map them and output some UI for them. So we'll do authors.map, grab an author, and we'll create an LI. The first thing we want to grab out of here is the image. So we'll get the author.avatar.url. And we're using TypeScript, and TypeScript doesn't like it if we use any, but we're going to use any for this demo. But you would write an interface called author, and then we put it there so that we get all of our typings and everything, make sure we don't mistype things. But for the sake of this demo, I'm going to skip that, which hurts my soul just a little bit. But all right, then we're going to do author.first name and author.last name. And I'll save that. Now let's go look at our site. And can't read map, so I need to have, I need to make sure that this is something the first time around because we're on the client side. All right, and there's our author. So we have a page. We're pulling back all of the authors out of WordPress that easily. We didn't have to tell Apollo about where our WordPress site was, where our GraphQL endpoint was, or anything. The framework is handling that for us. And the way that it does it is we have this headless provider that our entire app, React app, is being wrapped in. So if you do that, then Apollo is just going to work for you. Now, one interesting thing about this is that it's not being statically generated. This is happening only on the client. So if we wanted to get SEO or something out of this, it's not going to be that great right now. I'm going to add a class name wrap here. Let's add a little bit of styling just to make this look a little better. One thing that we could do is just pull in stuff from our other pages. So I'm going to wrap this in a React fragment, and then I'm going to go pull in some stuff from our templates. All right, so I want to get our header and our footer. So I'm just going to copy that over, grab our header, and then we'll grab our footer. Cool. Import those. Need to import React first, and then I can import from our components. TypeScript giving me all this helper stuff here, which is great. So that imported everything that we needed. Now we're missing these settings, so we need to get those. So let's do it. So we have a special hook, a React hook that you can use called use general settings, and that will get stuff like your title, your description, your site URL, stuff like that. So we just do use general settings, and that's pulled in for us. And so you can see that that's pulled in from the React part of our framework. When you look at the framework and you import things, if you can import it from Headless, generally it won't require you to have React to use. So you can use Apollo, you can use a lot of our GraphQL queries that we've already got in stuff like Vue. You can use our auth handler, so you can do previews in Vue and other frameworks as well. And then we have things that are specific to React, like the hooks. And then we have things that are specific to Next. Like if we come over here, we're importing the get static props paths and the Next template loader from /next. So you always know kind of what your dependencies are as you're pulling things out of the framework. All right, let's see what we can do here. So now let's make this, let's save this and go take a look at it. So we come over, now look, now it looks like the rest of our site. So we have our header, we have our footer, everything is working great. But you see that, how that worked there? When I went back, it loaded the header and footer quickly, but then it had to make the GraphQL call out to go and grab the author's book. So we want to statically generate this on the server so it just comes back immediately. Let's do that. So we only have to make a very small change here. And what we want to do is just add an export async function, get static props. It has a context on it. And this is just the next thing. So I'm going to pull this from typings from next. So it's a get static props context. All right, so now we have our context. And then what we want to do is we want to return get next static props from the framework. And we want to pass in that context. Okay. So that gets us set up. Now this will be statically generated for the page, but that query is still only going to happen on the client side in the browser. So we need to do that at this point. But how are we going to do that? So we need to go and get our Apollo client. And we pass in the context. We pass in the context so that we can save any queries that we do and push the state down to the browser as well. So we get the client, and then we just need to make a query with the client. So client.query, and then we pass in our query, which is the author's query, which we saved up here. That's why I put it in its own variable and not directly in the page itself. So we could do this. So now when I save this and I go back and we refresh, we click around and I go back, notice that that flash there is gone. And also let's go back and let's rebuild this so you can see it here. So if I do npm run build, we'll see that next is going to go out, build all the pages, and we'll see that author's page, and we'll see that it should be statically generated. So let's see what happens. All right, there it is. So here's all of our dynamic pages with the themes that are being statically generated. And here's our author's page. And sure enough, it is statically generated. So if we were to run this npm start, and we went to the site, and we go to /authors, should be pretty much instant. And there it is. I barely even saw it myself. That's pretty cool. So now we can easily create statically generated pages just by adding those couple lines of code that are different than how we would do it client side. So what I usually do when I'm building these is I go in, I do everything client side because it's just simpler at first. I get it all working, and then I add my queries to my get static props, and then boom, I'm static if I need to. Or if I need to do get server side props, I could do that as well. I would just change this to get server side props. And that means that every request in, it would run those queries or whatever I'm doing in that function on the server in real time. So it wouldn't be statically generated. So if I had dynamic data that I needed to be available, then that would happen there. All right, awesome. And of course, we can still do other things in the page client side as well. So if we needed to call other APIs that we weren't worried about them being statically generated, or maybe we have a shopping cart or something that is truly dynamic data, we can still do that client side. So we'll get the page that comes up, it'll be static, and then those API calls will be made and it'll fill out the rest of the page if that's what we wanted to do. All right, cool. Let's do one other thing so that I can show you another thing in the framework, and then we'll go and deploy this site. All right, the other thing that I want to show you is that on the single page, it doesn't show the author, and I want to add that. So I want to show you how we would do that. All right. So let's look at what that is. If I go to this is on the production build. Oh, we got to start the site back up. We're running on the production build, and we have it set to localhost 3000 in our plugin, so that doesn't run everything. I would need to go change that. All right, cool. Now we're back on localhost 3000. Get it up, and let's go to one of those blog posts, and we'll see that there's no author here, and we need to get that data added to our template. So how can we do this? When we're on a node, I already know what the author is, so I'm going to go back to our code, and we're in our single template here, and we want to add the author right under our post title. We'll just add a paragraph here, and we'll do author post dot author dot node dot name. All right. So I've got that in there, but nothing's going to happen right now because we're not actually pulling that data back. So I have author, you see it here, but it's not coming back because it's not part of the query that's being run automatically from the framework. So if you want to customize your queries and pull back any data out of WordPress, you can do that. So let's go to our dynamic page here where we're calling the get static props, and let's customize this query. So if I come in here, I can do queries, and I can do post. Now I want to add the fragment here. It's like, what query do I want to change? I want to add the different fragments. And I'll do my post data fragment. So all that I have to do here is put in the GraphQL query that I want to run whenever a post is being pulled from WordPress. So let's do that. So I'd say fragment, post data on post. So that's just something you have to know. That's in our documentation if you check it out. We need the content and title because that's already on the page here, title and content. But we also want the author. So we'll just say author node name. So if I save this and I come back here, refresh, we'll see that now the author came through as admin. Let me pick one of the other posts so you can see. Because I'm logged in as admin right now. This one's admin as well. Another one of these I changed. Probably Hello World. All right, there it is. So now we're pulling in the author, Will Johnson. So that's just how you can customize the queries that are being made automatically as part of the framework based on that URL. So if we see that it's a post, we'll run this fragment. So you can customize that so that everywhere where we see that a post is being pulled and it's going to be pulled into that single template, we will run this fragment and make sure that data is available for you. So that's pretty awesome. We have a site up. It's really bothering me that the author wasn't padded. So I'm going to move this before we deploy. Wow. It's 80, just OCD there. All right, so if we go back, that's better. So nice. All right, now let's deploy this to Atlas. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to push this to GitHub. So I have a repo ready here. It's already authenticated with Atlas. So I'm going to go ahead and push this code up. Let's look and make sure we have everything set up. I'll show you what you have to do. If we go to package.json, we need to have our, in our scripts right here, we need to have Npm Run start, make sure that we run on port 8080, which is why that was running there when we were doing our testing before. And we also need WPE-build, which this is part of the starter template, so you'll have all this in here already, but I want to show it. And it runs next to build. So when Atlas gets your code, we pull it down, we run npm install, then we run npm run WPE-build, and that's where you generate your static pages or whatever you need to do at that point in time. And then we run npm start whenever we run your site, and then it's available on the internet. All right, so that's already there for us because we're using our starter. And we're going to do this from Portal, which is brand new. So let's go do it. So I'm in Portal. Here's the WordPress site that I'm going to use. I've already got that created. But over on the left-hand side, I have Headless Apps. So I'm going to click on Headless Apps. I have a bunch of apps already. So those are going to load up. Now I'm just going to create new app. We're going to name this Decode 2021. We'll call this production. And we're going to link it to our WordPress environment, which was that site I just showed you, Decode 2021. So this will show you a list of all the sites on the account that you're on. I'm going to choose a region, US Central. Then I need the GitHub repo. It's on my GitHub repo, matt-landers/decode 2021. Then I need to tell it what branch I want to deploy. I'm pretty sure that it's the main branch. It is. So put the main branch there. Then I need to add my environment variables. Remember that we had environment variables in this .env.local. So I can just come in here and make sure I get the right ones. So it's next public WordPress URL. And that's actually going to point to my WP Engine hosted site. So I'm not going to use the same value from here since this is pointing to my local host. It's pointing to, you know, my site that I have spun up on local. I want that to point out to my site that's live on the internet right here. So I have it, decode2021.wpengine.com. So I'm going to copy this. Where was I? I was right here. All right, save that as the value. Now I need to add another one because I also need my secret. I'm just going to copy it to make sure I get it right. WP headless secret. All right. Oop, I don't want the value. Now I need to grab the right value from my WordPress site here. And I don't know what this is yet because we haven't deployed. So we're going to wait to get that. All right. So I can hit show value here. I can make sure that everything looks right. All that looks good to go. I've got everything in here like I want. I just hit create app and it's going to do authentication. So this is doing OAuth with GitHub. Make sure everything's cool so that we can pull your code down. It says, all right, we're authorized. We'll close that. And then, oh, we didn't push our code up. Whoops. All right, so we got to get status. We made some changes. Let's add commit, and we'll say that we added the authors page. And we'll push that up. Oh, we need to actually connect it to GitHub. Getting ahead of myself here. All right, so I need to grab this URL. Do git remote add origin that. Now I'll do git push -u origin main. All right, cool. Our code is up there now. Let's try it in Portal again. Click create app, make sure we're authenticated. And we should be taken to another page. All right, cool. So we are building our site now. Where is it? Decode 2021. We can click on this, our production build, and we can see that the site is building. Now this will take a couple minutes the first time. It's going to generate a headless URL here. So let's give this a minute and we'll be right back. All right, and after a couple of minutes, our site has been deployed on the Atlas platform. Once it's deployed, you get a URL right here under headless URL. And when we click it, whoa, that was fast. That's running on the internet. That is not local to my machine. That is running on the Atlas platform. We've been given that URL. That's amazing. So very quickly, we were able to use the Headless Framework to build a site, get that up and running. We were able to push that to GitHub and then tell the Atlas platform about our GitHub repo. It pulled down the code, ran it, and built it. And just like that, we have our headless WordPress site running on the internet with in one place. Like we have our WordPress, our Node.js environment all right here in Atlas. That's pretty awesome. Well, I hope that this has been an informative session and you've learned a little bit about where we're headed with our framework. We're just getting started with that. We have an exciting roadmap, but please go out, download the framework, try it out, break it, give us feedback. Tell us what you want to see in it too. We'd love to hear your feedback. Go on the GitHub repo, file issues for bugs, and use the GitHub discussions to talk to us about anything that you want to around the framework. Well, I'm really excited to see what all of you do with Headless WordPress. There's so many cool experiences that you can build with it. And we're here as the DevRel team to help you in your quest to learn Headless WordPress. We'll be creating educational content, best practices, and teaching you everything there is to know about Headless WordPress. That's at developers.wpengine.com. So check it out. And make sure you give us feedback there too. If there's something that you want to know how to do, let us know. We'll figure it out and we'll write a post and do a video for you. So I'm really excited to see what all of you do. I'm just excited about headless WordPress in general. This really opens the doors to a lot of new experiences that can be created. So go out there and build something great. All right, that's it for me on the demo, and let's go out and happy coding.